Good day, everybody. I'm back with another top 13 for you. This time we're doing the top 13 films of the year 1980. So check them out. Okay, if the film Cannibal Holocaust didn't really tickle your fancy, not enough cannibal action, I suggest you check out my number 13. It's a film called Zombie Holocaust. Came out the same year, obviously, 1980. It's a film about a Asiatic group of cannibals who somehow make it to the city and start terrorizing the city. Obviously, they're dispatched, and a group of researchers and journalists get together and decide to go to the source of this cult, the tropical island of Quito. So they travel there, and obviously they run into some resistance, obviously in the form of the cannibals. In addition to the cannibals, the tribesmen, we've got shambling zombies on the island, and the cannibals kind of hail them as like a deity, gods, if you will. Spin on the island of Dr. Moreau story. I'm not going to spoil it any more than that, but if you want more cannibal action, more people eating people, check out Zombie Holocaust. My number 12 is a film called Humanoids from the Deep. So this is a film about some, I guess you can call them sea monsters. There's a business or a company who has been experimenting with growth hormones, administering them to some salmon, which escape the facility, and they get eaten by bigger fish who then mutate into these humanoid fish people. And they are also very active sexually and decide to go to the beach and kidnap women and so forth. But a lot of fun, very, very cool, action-packed third act in the film where it's on the pier and there's a lot of action and explosions and the monsters are kind of all over. Yeah, check that one out. Very cool. Humanoids from the Deep. Number 11 is a film that I've recently watched for the first time. It was a recommendation that I had for a film called The Children. This film is really cool. It's about a small rural town that holds a kind of a nuclear site, and there a yellow toxic gas, breaks through the facility and envelops part of the town. And a school bus full of children drive right into this gas, and the children become these kind of zombie-like creatures. They don't feel pain, and they still look like children. They still look okay, except they're a little paler and they have maybe some darkened eyes. And when what they do is they fool the adults into thinking they're normal kids, and when they go to hug them, they kind of microwave them, kind of with the radiation, it burns them and their skin melt and stuff. So it's a very cool film, and I was able to watch it for free on YouTube, so you guys can check that out there. But a little bit slower, a slower burn with a heavy third act, but very, very atmospheric, which is why I like it so much. It's a film called The Children. And you can't have a top 18 or 1980 film list without one of the greatest Killer Croc films ever made. Alligator is my number 10, breaking into the top 10. And this film is about a alligator who was bought by a little girl, has a pet, and the father disapproved of the pet, flushes it down the toilet, and it survives in the sewers, and it grows to be enormous alligator, and eventually it takes some human victims, some people that are in the sewers, and eventually makes it out of the sewers, breaking through into the city streets, causing havoc above ground. So Yeah, very cool, very tense film, especially the scenes where they're like looking for it in the sewers. You think it's could be in every corner, right? So, if you haven't checked that one out, it's a film called Alligator, one of my favorite Killer Croc films. That and Crawl from last year, probably two of my favorite ones. So check it out, Alligator. All right, number 9 is a holiday film. It's a film called Christmas Evil. So this film, it opens with a happy little family. There are two boys in the family. One of them is kind of special needs, some mental health issues there, and he has an obsession with Santa Claus. Fast forward a few decades later, an adult, he still has retained this obsession with Christmas and Santa Claus, up to a point where he convinces himself that he is Santa Claus after he develops his own suit and beard and such. So, has Santa Claus, he, I guess, inherits these ideas that he should be delivering toys, gifts to kids, so he does so, and he wants to punish the bad people. And I don't recall him killing any children, but he does get even with people who have wronged him as an adult. All the while, it's kind of a character development piece where you can see he's kind of losing his mind further on as you go. Early on in the film, he's normal, you know, he's a working class man, he works at a toy factory, of course, and you rapidly see his mental health deteriorate to a point where he convinces himself that he is Santa Claus. So very, very interesting film. This one's free to watch on, or not free to watch, obviously. You have to subscribe to Shudder, so it's available on Shudder if you have that service. It's a very good Christmas time film if you're into Christmas horror, so check it out, Christmas Evil. Okay, number 8 is a film that is a loose sequel to Dario Argento's classic Suspiria. A film called Inferno, which is one of the films that we had to cover during our season 2. And this is a film. It really develops the story of the three sisters a lot more. Three witches, and obviously this is where they're first named. This is where the lore develops a little better. Of course, with the book that they find with the details on the alchemist who built these 3 houses for these 3 witch sisters at different parts of the world. So there's a person who discovers this book, does research on it, and is led to believe that she lives in one of these witch dens in this apartment complex or whatever it was. And as she's learning more about this, there's some strange deaths, some strange happenings in this building, all leading up to a pretty crazy ending there with the final showdown with the witch. Obviously, it's not a supernatural kind of horror film. It's kind of a slasher. So check it out. A film called Inferno. Alright, number 7 is a film you might be surprised to see this far down on the list, but there's a lot of great films that came out this year. It was a good year for horror. Number 7 is the original Friday the 13th, the story of the Pamela Voorhees losing her mind and killing off camp counselors in training or to be for this summer camp that's reopening after many years. So yeah, film about, obviously you know the story. She loses her kid because of negligence by the camp counselors who were canoodling while he was drowning. So, and then obviously she takes her revenge later on. That's kind of it was kind of a spoiler if you've never seen it, but you've seen Friday the 13th. But yeah, it's yeah, a great entry in the franchise. The first one. And not one of my favorites in the franchise, but solid film nonetheless. Friday the 13th. Alright, number 6 is a film by one of the greats of Italian horror cinema, Lucio Fulci. His first film in the Gates of Hell trilogy, a film called City of the Living Dead. So, obviously a zombie film. And this is a film that has some supernatural elements to it as well. It's about a kind of a medium. She goes into this trance during a session and sees this priest who offs himself. He hangs himself. And later we find out that this is kind of an action which resulted into a gate to hell being opened, whereas the spirits of the dead can return to Earth and, zombies walk the Earth again. So, a very gory film, very cool kills. You've got some very iconic scenes. Of course, I'm referring to when the woman kind of pukes up her insides in the car. Yeah, that's an image that kind of sticks with you. But a great film, an H.P. Lovecraft influenced film. Of course, some of the film that takes place in the town of Dunwich. Of course, classic Lovecraftian setting right there. So if you haven't checked it out, it's a film called City of the Living Dead. Going into my top 5. It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent fritters. A film called Motel Hell, that's my number 5, about a old farmer called Farmer Vincent who makes a living off of running his inn and selling his homemade jerky, which, the way he makes the jerky is questionable. Obviously, there's some human remains used for these fritters, and what he does is he rents out his rooms to people who he then kidnaps. He buries them up to their necks, and I think he feeds them some sort of mixture, assuming it's supposed to make the meat better. I don't know. But then he rips them out of the ground with his tractor and cuts them up in his butcher shop. So, all while being aided by his crazy, I think it's his sister that lives with him. Yeah, very, very awesome 80s film. So if you want that one, Scream Factory has a fantastic release of it. And it's one that I've recently watched, and I really, really enjoyed it. So check out Motel Hell. Number 4 is a classic Canadian film. Some would dub the best ghost film ever put to screen. I would probably disagree, but a film I really enjoy regardless. A film called The Changeling. So this film is about a music teacher who had lost his family in a car accident, so he's on his own. Moves into this old vacant Victorian mansion, and while he stays there, he starts experiencing some supernatural happenings and seeing some apparitions, some things that would suggest that this mansion has a very, very sinister background. And so him along with some friends or his friend, they research the history of the mansion and then hold like a seance kind of thing, and then actually is able to communicate with the spirit. It's the spirit of a little boy who helps them try to figure out, what happened to him and what happened in the house, etc. So a very, very interesting, very atmospheric film. Slow burn kind of, with some jump scares here and there, but effective ones. So great film, The Changeling. Okay, moving into the top 3. Number 3 is a John Carpenter film, and it's another ghost film, but not just ghosts. They are ghost pirates, my guy. Ghost pirates. This is a film, probably the one that I appreciate the atmosphere the most on this list. You've got the coastal town, the lighthouse, the fog rolling in from the sea, and some ghostly beings that inhabit that fog. So amazing film. There's not a lot of gore. Probably not. I don't recall there being a very high body count. It's just full of atmosphere, and that's why I love this film. I appreciate that a lot more than Blood and Guts. That might just be me. but just a fantastic piece by John Carpenter, and one that I think is super underrated. So please check out, or actually our group has already covered this film before, but if you haven't seen it yet, check out The Fog by John Carpenter. Okay, going into number two. Number two is a film that just has to make the list, right? It's probably most people's number one of the year and number one of all time. Dubbed as one of the greatest horror films ever made. I think it's slightly overrated, but that doesn't mean I hate it. I love this film. It's The Shining. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and starring Jack Nicholson. A film about a dude who brings his family over to his new job as a caretaker of this hotel that's closed down for the season over wintertime. And he loses his mind. Well, I wish he loses his mind, because that's probably why I don't like it as much as other people. So I think that that element where he goes crazy, I think that's rushed a little bit. I think he's crazy going into the place and then further loses his mind, which is meh to me, but Jack Nicholson is a fantastic actor. That's probably one of his most recognizable roles right there, as Jack Torrance. Fantastic supernatural element to it, with the ghostly figures and the bloody halls and all that stuff, and the ghost of the old lady in the bathtub, who can forget that, and the iconic ending of the maze outside the hotel. So just a classic of the genre right there, The Shining. What can beat The Shining? Well, my number one is a film called Maniac, a film which is a kind of a character study of a serial killer. It follows the killer around, and you kind of witness his actions and his murders. So this guy is a guy who was abused by his mother growing up, and now he has an unhealthy kind of mom fixation and an obsession with beautiful women. And he, in his mind, beauty is a crime, and he wants to kill all these women. And what he does is he scalps them, and then nails the scalps to mannequins, and he decorates his room, his apartment, with these mannequins, talks to them. They're kind of his little family. Just what The Shining fails in the depiction of mental health deterioration, Maniac gets A+ for. You just see kind of like Christmas Evil, you just see a deterioration in his behavior, and he just gets crazier and crazier throughout the film, and it's just a very interesting piece. So one that I highly recommend, one that's in my collection, and I'll probably be revisiting multiple times. So check out Maniac. Anyways, guys, that's my list for this week. I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Let me know what kind of list you want to see next. I'm probably going to take some ideas for the next one, because right now I'm not sure. Obviously, top 13 of 1990 is going to be coming up, but probably not for my next one. I got to really binge and do a deep dive into 1990 horror. So let me know what you guys want to see for the next time. Have a good one.